giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Okay, welcome back to the Understanding SEO series on the Site Shed. If you missed the last episode, my name is Matt Jones. I'm joined by Dave from Melbourne SEO Services. And throughout this series, we're collaborating to help listeners get a better understanding of the ecosystem that is SEO today. In the first episode, we spoke about websites. And to give you a brief summary, we talked about what elements and what essentials form a website in 2015. We spoke about the different types of websites that or different things that you might have on your website relating to your company, whether it's a maintenance-based company or whether it's a commercial style development company. And we got to the bottom of a number of nitty-gritty issues, including mobile updates and preference to the search engine's preference to a website that is optimized for mobile search. However, in this episode, we're going to talk about content, and we've laid the foundation with website. And the second pillar is, okay, once you've got the website, how do we go about putting content on it that is not only search engine friendly, but it's also designed for your reader. So, Dave, thanks for joining us again on this second episode.
Yeah, pleasure.
So this is a big one because we see, I'll be honest, I'd say for the majority of the time, we see websites that have poor content and they're not updated regularly. What is content?
Yeah, so the way that we think about content is it's just any form of media that engages your buyers or your prospects in your message. It's a way to deliver your message, and that might be in video format, it could be in text format, it could be in audio format. So someone listening to this right now, this is a form of content, this podcast here. In text format, it could be a blog post on your website, it could be a PDF that you share, and in video format, it could be something that you upload to YouTube, or a short clip that you've got uploaded to your Facebook. It really is any type of media that enables you to share a business message with your target market.
Yep, and that's important for the listeners that didn't catch that. When you post stuff to your social media streams, you are posting content. So don't ever... I strongly encourage people not to just go out there and, post things about their cats on their business social media page. You do tend to see some things that pop up from time to time that are really not overly relevant. So I have a website.
Yep.
Why should I have a content strategy?
Yeah, I think content is an important piece, and this is why it's that second piece in this 3-step methodology that we're going through, and it runs straight after your website. And it's extremely important because it's what enables you to tell your message to your clients and prospects. It's the way for you to talk with them. It's a way for you to pre-sell your services. Now, these days, everybody is extremely busy. Whether you've got a distraction of a full email box or a text message coming through, or even you're just jumping on Facebook or your social media and having a look around, there's just messages coming at you left, right, and center. So how do you actually break through that noise? Because if you're feeling that, your prospects are feeling that as well. And unless you've got a product or a service that they're looking for right now, there's a good chance that you're just another distraction and another thing getting in the way of whatever it is that they're doing right now. So you need to make sure that when you do create content, that it's designed specifically for your target market in mind, and it's helpful and useful so that they actually engage in it. Because by creating great quality content, you get the attention of your target market. Then if you continue to deliver great content over a period of time as part of a strategy, then you continue to engage them. And as you engage them over time, then you build trust. And once you've got that trust, it becomes a lot easier for you to then make a sale, introduce them to your products and services. And ultimately, that's why you'd want to create a content strategy, is because you want someone to go ahead and make a purchase of your products and services.
Yeah, it's a good point. So basically, I suppose one of the core reasons why we create content is because we're trying to strike up a bit of a dialogue, or we're trying to resonate with our prospects or our customers and keep them engaged. So for a trade-based company, I mean, we often get people say, well, you know, I'm a plumber. I run a block drain business. How am I going to engage with my customers? It's not exactly a sexy topic. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that front?
I think every industry, there is some opportunity to create some form of content, even just starting at the very basics of frequently asked questions. No matter what the business is, there are questions that you get on a repeated basis. And if you can turn that into some form of content, whether it's a video or an article that answers that question, then it becomes a good, useful piece of content to engage. And using the example you gave just then with the person who maybe unblocks drains, how about creating a piece of content that says, here are the 3 things that you should test yourself first before you call a plumber to unblock your drain. So that then becomes helpful. You might say, the first thing that you should do is I don't know, run out and make sure that your mains are turned off. Make sure, if you've got a plunger in the house, give that 2 or 3 goes. Does that do the trick? And if not, pop down to Bunnings and get yourself a plunger. If that still doesn't do the trick, then you can try some Drano. If that doesn't do the trick, then you're going to need a professional, and we're the professionals to help you. So that is a great way to create a bit of content that would be useful if, let's say, I'm at home and I've got a blocked drain and I hop on YouTube to try and figure out how to unblock it. I come across your piece of content. It's useful. It's helpful. It didn't help solve my problem. Now you've caught my attention and you've gained my trust because you've actually genuinely tried to help me. All right, well, now I'm going to pick up the phone and call you rather than the 100 of other different plumbers that I could be calling.
And I suppose one of the other what you're doing there as well is you're staying at the forefront of your customer or prospect's mind. So in the event that somebody may need a service that relates to your trade, if your video or if your document was the last thing that they've seen, even if it was a week or so before, they're probably going to be more inclined to remember that than somebody that hasn't done something similar.
Yeah. I think that front of mind, and it depends on the industry as well. Sometimes that's more relevant than others. Like, for example, we talked about in the previous episode, we talked about the locksmith, who the person has the emergency need that they solved right now, versus compare that to something like, I'm just trying to think, a builder that you might do a bit more research around. Having that type of content, and maybe if you're a builder and you're sharing content about dream architecture and things like that, that's the type of stuff that people might look at and engage if they were considering building. And then it does that thing that Matt was just talking about, which is keep your message right in front of them, top of mind.
So, Dave, let's discuss the difference between content for the reader versus content for the search engines. I know there's a fine line there, and it's pretty important when you are creating content that you do create content for the reader. However, you also want it to show up on search engines. What would be the defining differences there, or what are maybe not the differences? What are the similarities, or how do you hit two birds with one stone in that regard?
The biggest thing is understanding now what Google's objective is and making sure that our objective is in line with theirs. So if Google's objective is to answer people's questions and give them the best and most relevant result when they're searching for something, if we create content that answers questions and we know people go to Google looking for answers, then our content can, just by the nature of doing that at bare basics, you stand a better chance of getting found. There are a few tweaks, and this is why you work with an SEO or someone who understands a little bit around this topic, I still believe you should always write for the user first. There's no point in writing an article for the sole purpose of trying to rank in the search engines, because by the time the user gets there, if it's a low quality piece of content, they'll just very quickly hit the back button and go back to the Google search. And that's actually a very bad quality signal to Google to say, hey, someone didn't actually care long enough to stay to read your article. They just came back to Google looking for the next result. So that's why you always want to think in terms of creating something for the user first. And then there are some things that you can do to make sure it's more acceptable or more favored by the search engines. And that has to do with thinking about what phrases someone's actually searching for when they're looking to find the piece of content that you've created. So this comes down to keywords. And I just want to be careful that someone doesn't think with keywords, and I always just tread lightly around this, because someone hears the idea of keywords and thinks, oh, okay, I want to create a page that's optimized for plumbers, Melbourne, Australia. And then once they recognize that's the keyword, then they try and squish it into every place they can on a page. They'll have it multiple times in the title, multiple times in the description, multiple times on the page. Are you looking for a plumber in Melbourne, Australia, because we've got the biggest range of plumbers in Australia, and if you're looking for the best plumber based in Melbourne in Australia, we can help. Like that type of thing, again, it's a good example of where someone's written thinking that they're doing it for the search engines in mind, when really they should be writing for the user first, because it creates a bad user experience. If someone landed on a page like that, they would just think, oh, this feels a little bit like rubbish, I'm going to select something else. So you're right, there is that fine line. I always put the reader first, without going into detail of how to correctly select keywords, where to put them in and how many times. Like that gets a bit too technical. I think if you want to work with an SEO, that's what they'll do. But if you just want to create great content, just think about what someone would type into the search engines and then try and answer that question, and then try and have what it is that you think they've typed into the search engine at least referenced a couple of times on the page.
Yeah, that's a good point. And we've actually, I created a course called Content Creation Like a Boss 1.0, which is available exclusively to members of the Site Shed. That's a training program where it'll actually give you a blueprint and a structure with some framework on how you can create SEO friendly content for your website. So it's based, it's really based around how you can add content to your blog or a page on your WordPress site. However, the principles behind it most certainly apply to other forms of content in the space of video, audio, whatever it is. One thing I would you touched on it, but I just really want to harp on the fact that when you are creating content, you want to have a clear message when you're in your article. So don't go talking about too many different topics or items or keywords within that one article. Try and keep it relevant to one message. And the reason we find that obviously works better is because you're not confusing your reader. They're coming there for information relating to block drains or dripping taps or whatever it is. However, if you've got an article or a bit of content created there that is all encompassing and has everything in there, it's firstly confusing for the reader, and it's also confusing for the search engines, because the search engine is saying, well, I'm not really quite sure what they're talking about specifically in this article, so I'm not going to give it any credit when the search query is entered.
Yeah, I mean that's good advice on no matter what it is that you're doing when building your website. You need to make sure that you've got a reason for doing it and make sure that it's serving that end user and trying to make the process as simple as you can for them. I mean, everybody's busy these days. Just give people what they want when they're looking for it and make it easy. Like
exactly.
That's what everybody wants.
And I suppose this series is a prime example of how you can keep information relevant to a specific topic. This whole series is about SEO. However, we've broken it down into 3 specific topics because we want to talk specifically about websites. We want to talk specifically about content. And then the following episode, we're going to talk specifically about content syndication. So if we had to put all of this into one episode, it would not only be confusing and overwhelming. I would seriously question the advantages of or the benefits in regard to what people can actually take away from it, because they'll be so overloaded with so much information, they won't know what to do next.
Yeah.
Okay, so I suppose I wanted to talk quickly about some relevant information regarding to business. I can probably contribute a fair amount in this regard because we've done a lot of this for clients. So I've got written down here as an example, as say we're a landscaper in Seattle, how we might go about creating content or regular recurring content for that business. And I know sometimes you've got to think a little bit out of the box, and you touched on it, Dave, before, where, you know, you could be doing things like how-tos or tips and tricks. It's quite relevant, I think, for trades. And if you're a landscaper in Seattle, it could be something as simple as, you know, how to, you know, what would be the best way to see your garden flourish coming into spring, autumn, summer, winter. So how you can maintain, how you can look after your garden so that it doesn't wither up and die. We find things like that work really well for people in the landscaping arena. And you can do all of that through automation. So it often sounds like it's a lot of work to create content. Yeah, admittedly, it does take work sometimes to set it up initially, but if you do it the right way, you can actually do it so you create it once and it just runs year round. So do you have any input on that?
The way I always like to think about content is just you think about getting into the mind of your target market, think about what it is that they're thinking or might be looking for before they make that purchase. So the frequently asked questions is a really good one. Thinking, as you talked about, potentially you could tie it in seasonally if there is something that you can play off. You can also think in terms of if someone's thinking about doing landscaping, they might be thinking about what are the landscapes of the rich and the famous, who knows? And you write a piece of content around dream landscapes that help people visualize what are some of the different options, and you help them through that dream process. It really just comes down to thinking about what's going on in their head just prior to them thinking about making that buying decision, and then having that content there. And if you're not sure, you've probably got an audience or some past clients, ask them. There's nothing like listening to your clients and find out what it is that they're asking, or chat with whoever's your frontline support, chatting with your clients and prospects, and find out what those frequently asked questions are and start to document those, and then make it part of that sequence, as Matt talked about, using some of the automation tools so that you can have a logical sequence that someone goes through this buying cycle, and you help to educate them along that process.
That's great. So we won't go too much into this next bit, but I just wanted to say, are there any tools or any programs or apps or anything like that you recommend for creating great content? I mean, I know for a lot of our customers that have a visual product. So whether it's, a builder, or it might be, an electrician that specializes in fit out, or, cafes or pub building and that kind of stuff. They've got a really cool product that you can look at the end and go, wow, this is awesome. So we recommend tools. Obviously your iPhone is a very powerful tool, due to the fact that it's got video and it's got, a great camera on it. And then the programs that we tend to recommend for companies like that might be things like Instagram or Pinterest, or just visual platforms.
Yep.
Is there any tools or programs or apps that you'd recommend, Dave?
I reckon the video is one of the best ways for any business, because you could capture particularly anything where there's that before and after. I've just got this picture in my head of someone before they were starting a landscaping or a building project, and then having little updates or time-lapse type footage that shows through the process and then shows the completed process. Because that's the biggest thing. When you're about to make a buying decision, particularly of that size, you want to make sure that you get a quality product. So if you can show, well, here's a client that was in a similar situation to you, decided to work with us, and here's what the before and after look like. I mean, what a fantastic way to show your work. And you could even finish that video with having the client pop up and say 2 or 3 words like, hey, we worked with XYZ company. They were a dream to work with, and we're so happy with the end result. So video is probably a good one. Depending on the industry, I mean, there's other ways that you can capture different media. I talked about the 3 types of media, either video, either text, or audio. Potentially audio could be another way. Some people don't like to jump in front of the camera. You could use Dictamus, which is just a little recording app on your iPhone. They've got a recording app built in where you can record audio. That could be something that appears on your website. It's not necessarily as engaging as video, but it's good to have multiple modes of media. And then when it comes to capturing info as well, I mean, we use something every day on our Mac called ScreenFlow, which just enables you to record things that are happening on your screen. You could create a little presentation, get together some before and after photos and just talk through some projects, make some case studies on projects that you've worked on. That could be another way.
Yep. Yeah, actually, and that's one of the things that we've taught at workshops and stuff in the past as well. With a project, if you're doing work with projects, a great way to tell the story, and I'll use a builder as an example, is you can before you rock up on site, before the work even starts, find a spot on that property that's going to stay the same throughout the entire project. Get a camera or even your phone and take a photo of that project at that certain spot at a certain time of day, at a certain angle, at the same height. And then every week or so, go and do exactly the same thing from that exact spot, same time, same height. And you can really then see like a time lapse over the course of the project's length, how it's progressed. And you can really look through the stages of where it was and what it is now.
Yeah, I reckon that's a great one. I mean, that's the whole before and after. You look at stuff like in the dieting industry and a lot of health-related industries, one of the primary ways that they will sell is here's the before state and here's the after state, and it works incredibly well in the trades business.
Yeah, excellent. So have we missed anything there with content, Dave?
Yeah, look, I don't think so. The thing with content is, and it's like all things with the web, it is a bit of an ongoing process. It needs to be consistent. Just creating one bit of content and hoping that it'll go viral and get shared across Facebook and Twitter, the chances of you having that happen is probably quite slim, but it's the process of consistently doing it over a period of time and making it just part of the way that you do things. That's really where you'll start to get the results, because it's like a snowball and it builds momentum as it starts rolling down the hill. And if you started collecting this type of content that we're talking about in 12 months, 2 years' time, if you've been consistently putting it up there, then you'll look back and go, oh, wow, now I can see this is really having a big impact. But if you do 1 or 2 bits and you load it to the website and then say, oh, Matt and Dave said that this was going to make magical things happen once I created great content, it doesn't quite work like that. It does take time. But again, those rewards are worth it. And this is just step 2 in this 3-stage process, because just building great content isn't enough. We also need to make sure that we share it, and we need to make sure that also for the website that it's got a good place to live. So that's, again, why this framework is so solid, because it covers that website content and then sharing.
Yeah, cool. So look, some takeaways and some key points for me on this talk, Dave, were content comes in many forms. It can be video, audio, text, social media, whatever it is. It could be even you doing a letterbox drop or getting fridge magnets printed up. It's all content. I would also say that content, maybe one thing we didn't talk about a whole lot, is that content should often be used as a call to action. We don't really ever create content that doesn't have some form of call to action in it. And a call to action might be something like If you'd like more information on this, or if you'd like to speak to a specialist, you can contact us at our website, visit www.xyz, or, something that's in leading your customer or your prospect to the next step.
Yeah. And that's regardless of where that content is shared as well, on your website, in social media. I mean, the call to action in social media might be to come back to the website, but you're right. Every piece of content needs to have a purpose, and you're not just doing it to get, warm and fuzzies that you created a blog post.
Yeah, that's right. Are there any wrap-ups there? Any final points for you, Dave?
No, just get out there and do it. A lot of people find excuses why they can't, whether that's, I don't think I can do something with video, or I don't think I could talk comfortably or confidently about my subject matter or topic. No one's comfortable right the very first time you do it. You have to get started. The first piece of content you create will be the ugliest. Just be happy with that and accept it. And understand that every bit that you create after that will just improve with that practice. It's
amazing, isn't it, that people just assume that you're just born to present. God, I can remember the first time I got in front of a microphone, I was terrified. But look, I think the one of the other advantages of setting a bit of a content strategy into your business is, chances are, your competitors are not doing it. So you can get out there and you can do this, and you can really build yourself a presence in that space just by doing something that your competitors aren't willing to do. Because it does take work and it does take a commitment from you. Just get out there and do it and just see what happens. You're not going to know until you test the water. So, look, I think that wraps up this episode on content. So in the next episode, we are going to talk about what you actually do with the content that you've created. So stay tuned for that. Dave, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And we'll chat to you soon.
You've been listening to Toolbox Talks by The Site Shed. For more great content just like this, head across to thesiteshed.com and join the amazing community of savvy trade-based business owners.